Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be afraid. I'm your host, Eddie Muller, and I welcome you to my little section of the Midway, Noir Alley. Many of the movies I show here are picked to prove that noir wasn't confined to pictures with hard-boiled language and expressionistic shadows. Tales of cruel fate and self-destructive protagonists weren't limited to the crime genre. Noir's existential dread could, for instance, seep into something as seemingly innocent as a county fair or a traveling carnival. Like in our film today, Nightmare Alley, made at 20th Century Fox in 1947. Actor Tyrone Power read the novel, written by William Lindsay Gresham, when it was published in 1946. He begged Fox chief Darryl Zanuck to buy it for him as a starring vehicle. Power was the studio's most reliable romantic leading man, star of such hits as The Mark of Zorro, Blood and Sand, and The Black Swan. But by 1947, Power felt he'd buckled enough swash. He wanted to mix things up, stretch his range, and sully his romantic image a bit. Nightmare Alley represented quite a risk, both for the studio and the actor. The character of mentalist Stan Carlisle, the Great Stanton, shows off the actor's charm and charisma, but for the first time, he's a cynical, cold-hearted charlatan.
Are you insane?
That's not a bad hunch, lady.
Power's previous film, The Razor's Edge, also directed by Edmund Goulding, gave the actor one of his most complex roles as a man on a spiritual quest to discover the meaning of life. In Nightmare Alley, he's that character's devilish opposite, a calculating opportunist who finds fulfillment in bilking rubes and suckers, who, as someone once noted, are born every minute.
See those yokels out there? It gives you sort of a superior feeling, as if you were in the know and they were on the outside looking in. Kind of hard to explain, but I like it.
The character of the all-American huckster and the carnival life that spawned him had always intrigued writer William Lindsay Gresham, especially after he'd met a veteran carny named Doc Holliday while serving as a medic during the Spanish Civil War. What he learned from Holliday inspired one of the great nonfiction books about carny life, 1953's Monster Midway. But it's the fictional Nightmare Alley that is the author's lasting legacy. Gresham was deeply interested in spiritualism, but his skeptical nature and his insider's view of the show business side of salvation led him to debunk all soothsayers, from fortune tellers to evangelists to Scientology, which he'd explored and abandoned in its earliest incarnation. Of all the films of the classic era that can be called noir, Nightmare Alley is perhaps the most prescient for its depiction of charismatic con men duping gullible and ignorant people by simply telling them what they want to hear and picking their pocket as part of the exchange. Not that anyone wanted to hear it in 1947. As Darryl Zanuck feared, Nightmare Alley was a flop. Audiences didn't want to see Tyrone Power play a bad guy. The actor, however, would have the last laugh. Once freed from years of legal entanglement, Nightmare Alley's reputation has grown steadily. The film had been out of circulation for decades when I resurrected it at a screening in Hollywood more than 23 years ago. After the show, a man approached me and confided that the code phrase, "Maybe you know my friend, Stan Carlisle," was used by con artists in the New Age self-help movement as a way of tipping off fellow grifters that they were hip to any scams. Turns out that Gresham's cautionary tale had also become a how-to guide for subsequent generations of phony spiritualists and healers. Today, Nightmare Alley is recognized not only as a terrific film noir, but one of the most powerful movies of the 1940s. Oscar-winning director Guillermo del Toro has made a new star-studded version of the film released last month. That's one of the reasons I wanted to bring the original back for an encore. It's also one of my favorite movies, noir or otherwise. The terrific supporting cast is topped by 3 unforgettable female characters, played brilliantly by Joan Blondell, Colleen Gray, and Helen Walker. Plus, there are great supporting roles for Ian Keith, Mike Mazurki, and Taylor Holmes. And topping it all is Tyrone Power, giving, for me, his greatest performance. So, step right up, folks. You are about to enter Nightmare Alley.